Hello, welcome to Ventured Deep. In today's video, I'm going over how deep is the ocean exactly. Documentary for Sleep. The ocean has always been a place of wonder, a place of mystery. It is easy to think of the ocean as endless, stretching forever into the unknown. And yet, what lies beneath its surface is far greater than what the eye can see. For the ocean is not simply wide, it is unfathomably deep, and this depth is what gives it its power, its majesty, and its secrets. So tonight, we set out on a gentle journey, not to conquer the ocean, but to understand, to drift slowly downward in thought, as if descending through water, tracing layer after layer, beginning with the familiar waves, the surface touched by wind and sunlight, where seabirds skim and boats cut across, a place we know well, a place of sparkling light. But as we let our imagination sink deeper, the light begins to fade. Colors shift from brilliant blue to darker shades, and soon we reach a twilight zone, a region where the sun can no longer fully reach, where strange fish with delicate fins drift in quiet currents, a place both calm and mysterious. Here the water presses in more heavily, reminding us of the invisible weight of the sea, and as we descend further still, darkness becomes complete. No sun, no horizon, only blackness broken by flashes of life, tiny creatures glowing with bioluminescence. We can imagine what it means to measure depth, not only in numbers, but in feeling, in pressure, in silence. For the deepest parts of the ocean are unlike anywhere else on Earth. They are realms where mountains higher than Everest lie hidden upside down beneath the waves, have risked everything to touch the bottom. And yet, even then, the ocean seems to guard its secrets, reminding us how small we are and how vast the world truly is. So, as we rest, let us think of depth not just as distance, not just as kilometers or miles, but as a quiet descent into mystery, where every layer holds life, downward and downward, into calm, into peace, into the very question that brings us here. How deep is the ocean exactly? That some things are meant to be measured not in facts alone, but in awe, in wonder, and in the gentle rhythm of the sea itself. And so we go on, continuing our journey deeper into thought, deeper into quiet life, resilient life, creatures with bodies built of gelatin, creatures with eyes so large they catch the faintest hint of light, where survival is a slow dance. And as we float past them in imagination, we understand that the ocean's depth is not empty, it is full. Keep going, sinking gently past canyons carved by currents, past mountains hidden beneath, past volcanic ridges where the earth is still alive. From the seafloor, towers that glow with heat and life. For even here in the deepest dark, bacteria thrive, turning chemistry into energy. And where there is energy, but another kind of world entirely, a reminder that what we call extreme nature calls home. And so we descend again, slower, quieter, as if falling into a dream, deeper than the mind can truly imagine. Places like the Mariana Trench, Challenger Deep, names that carry a sense of myth, places only a handful of humans have ever touched, where submarines creak under the unimaginable pressure. If it has no concern for our brief visits, our small measurements, our human sense of achievement, quietly, endlessly deep, a reservoir of mystery and silence. And as we imagine ourselves there, in that trench, in that blackness, and so, when we ask, how deep is the ocean exactly? we might be given numbers. 11 kilometers. Tonight, as we drift toward rest, perhaps that is enough to know that the ocean's depth, like the depth of our own minds, cannot be mapped in full, only felt, only honored, only allowed to be as it is, vast, dark, endless, eternal, as deep as sleep itself. Part 1. The setup and the race. The ocean has always been more than water. It is a mirror of ambition, fear, and longing. For centuries, sailors spoke of depths too vast for man to measure, and even in an age of satellites and probes, there remain places where maps surrender to the unknown. Sentence in human history. Our protagonist is not the first to chase this mystery, but perhaps the one most desperate to solve it. To them, this is not just a mission, but a calling shaped by loss, obsession, and the quiet promise of discovery. Not spoken aloud, but it is present in headlines, whispered in briefing rooms, and etched into every technological test. To withstand, every bolt, every circuit, every gauge is a gamble. The crew is assembled not only for skill, but for resilience, though none can be fully prepared for the abyss. Descending away from the world, the first meters of the dive will seem calm, even beautiful, but with each passing depth, light will fade, pressure will rise, and solitude will thicken. The ocean does not rush. It waits patiently for those who enter it. Yet in its patience lies a challenge far greater than machinery or rivalry. This is not only exploration. The myth of the bottomless ocean. For centuries, sailors whispered legends of an ocean without end, unseen by daylight, moving silently through endless darkness. The idea of bottomless seas terrified kingdoms. The ocean was a mirror of the heavens, a starless abyss below. Scientists dismissed myths, measuring depths with ropes and stones. Yet questions always lingered unanswered beneath waves. Was the sea finite, measurable, or a doorway into something far greater than imagined? Every new expedition scratched the surface, but the secrets of true depth remained untouchable. Legends persisted in every culture, suggesting humanity's deep fear and fascination with unseen darkness. The bottomless ocean became metaphor, symbol, and mystery, merging science, spirituality, and boundless imagination. To call something bottomless was to admit human limits, an acknowledgement of nature's eternal dominance. Yet myths never fade easily. They cling like mist, shaping generations of explorers and wanderers. In those myths lay the seeds of ambition, to probe deeper, to challenge impossible. Every diver. So the bottomless ocean became stage, antagonist, and guide in humanity's oldest exploration story. Tonight, the myth breathes again as one life seeks answers in unimaginable, crushing depth. Introducing the protagonist. A life defined by depth. Our story follows a man whose life was shaped entirely by the mysteries of depth. From childhood, he looked beyond horizons, always wondering what might exist beneath silent waves. He was not driven by riches or fame, but a relentless, unshakable curiosity. Others dreamed of stars. He dreamed of trenches where silence weighed heavier than time. Depth, for him, was never distance measured. It was memory, meaning, and unfinished questions. Every relationship he built was shaped, somehow, by his calling toward the ocean's abyss. Friends admired his passion, but feared the risks, for oceans are patient, merciless adversaries. Still, ocean worlds Teachers called him obsessed, yet obsession was his compass, guiding choices no one else understood. Every sacrifice, every journey, it was his biography, his legacy, and his burden to define his life. One must first define depth itself, limitless, hungry, endlessly alluring, in his presence. One felt that water flowed through veins instead of ordinary human blood. He was the ocean's child, destined to chase darkness until it either consumed or crowned childhood fascinations and early losses. As a boy, he collected seashells, pressing them to ears, hearing imaginary voices within. The ocean was lullaby, guardian, and teacher, but also thief, cruelly taking loved ones away. One stormy night, his father's boat never returned, swallowed by a raging, merciless sea. That loss etched permanent scars, but also planted hunger to understand what really claimed lives. Each shoreline walk afterward became pilgrimage, each crashing wave reminder of questions left unanswered forever. Children played in sunlight, but he lingered at tide pools. One believed possible, he whispered promises to waves. Someday I will follow where you have stolen others. Loss carved hollow space inside him, and fascination filled it, overflowing into unshakable ambition. By adolescence, he was fluent in science, engineering, and myths, blending knowledge with imagination. Loss taught him oceans devour without mercy. Yet curiosity told him answers might still heal. The ocean became parent and rival both, giving beauty but demanding sacrifice with equal certainty. Every childhood wound hardened into armor, preparing him for depths where none had survived. He carried grief as fuel, knowing every descent honored the memory of those lost. And so his childhood became foundation, shaping man who would risk everything for understanding the call of the deep. Why risk it all? Why would anyone risk their life descending into pressure that crushes steel like paper? The answer lies not in logic, but in longing, curiosity, and restless human defiance. The deep called him like song, irresistible, echoing through every choice. Any noise. Friends asked why he pursued danger, but danger was never enemy. Ignorance was. For him, risk was language of exploration, cost paid for truth, reward. Only downward, each attempt at explanation faltered. How do you explain obsession that feels like breathing? Risk was never madness, but his mind was steel, unyielding to doubt. The ocean's danger was not deterrent, but invitation, daring him to step where none stood. And so he accepted, not recklessly, but with reverence, understanding price written in salt. Why risk it all? Because some truths demand sacrifice before they reveal themselves to mortals. The deep, other nations watched, equally hungry to claim deepest secrets first in distant laboratories, as weapon and dreams as dominance. Every trench became battlefield, not of soldiers, but engineers, scientists, and fragile experimental craft. His rival was brilliant. Rival pursued glory not from love of ocean, but hunger for redemption. Between them stretched unseen war, a silent race measured not in miles, but meters. Every announcement was mirrored, every prototype challenged, every setback exploited to fuel nationalist pride. The ocean itself became chessboard, each descent a move, each trench a contested square. Nations cheered their chosen, delicate machinery. Dreamers became pawns, though neither man believed himself pawn. Both believed himself king, and so rivalry sharpened ambition, adding urgency to every descent and every sleepless night, to men, to nations, one ocean, one abyss waiting to choose its witness. This was no simple expedition, it was race where failure meant shame and success immortality. The funding battle, selling an impossible mission to chase dreams, even impossible ones, required money, influence, and persuasive words spun carefully. He traveled from universities to boardrooms, medicine, technology forever. Investors leaned back skeptically, calculating risks, thinking only of returns, not truths hidden underwater. He spoke of life in darkness, creatures whose secrets might unlock cures or energy. He promised innovation, patents, resources, making abyss sound like vault holding treasures, waiting extraction. Still, most saw folly, calling him madman, dreamer, reckless gambler with lives and capital. Each rejection stung, but also hardened his resolve. Sharpening his speeches into steel blades, he learned language of commerce, learning to dress myths in profits, legends in markets. Slowly, small grants trickled, then larger backers, each willing to gamble on impossible journey. Governments, too, saw potential, whispering quietly about weapons, surveillance, and submarine dominance beneath oceans. He did not care why they funded, only that they allowed descent to continue. Every coin raised became another rivet, another circuit, another chance to build impossible vessel. Funding was battle equal to pressure, crushing his spirit, yet forging strength through resistance. To sell abyss was hardest sale, for product was not gold, but knowledge. In end, enough believed, enough paid, enough risked to place prototype into steel reality. A vessel unlike any other. The prototype's submersible, the vessel stood gleaming, not like ship, but like dream cast into tangible steel. Its frame was delicate, yet strong, curved to deflect crushing pressure thousands of meters below. Inside, fragile heartbeats within armored, rounded shell. It was machine, yet also sanctuary. It was child of vision, obsession, and sacrifice. Its windows were tiny, like eyes, designed to glimpse abyss, but never invite destruction. Every bolt tightened represented countless hours. Engineering. It was prototype, untested, yet already legend. Symbol of humanity's attempt to reach unknown. To step inside was to enter both coffin and cathedral. But dreamers kissed its hull like sacred relic. This vessel was humanity's whisper to ocean. We are small, but we still dare. Every inch of steel was poem, every dial prayer, every weld promise to descend. It was not perfect, but it was enough, for dream demanded no less. Standing before it, he felt awe, fear, and pride blending into unshakable resolve. The prototype was more than vessel, it was destiny, waiting patiently to touch eternity's floor. Flaws in the design, pressure holes and fragile circuits yet beneath polished surfaces. Flaws whispered, weaknesses hidden like cracks beneath beautiful glass. The pressure hole, though strong, carried doubts, engineers worrying about metal fatigue under stress. One miscalculated weld could mean implosion, instant death, faster than thought, deeper than nightmares. The circuits, delicate as spiderwebs, often flickered, leaving instruments blind in crushing darkness. Every dive carried chance of failure. Every test revealed fragility of human-built defenses inside. Oxygen tanks hummed, reliable yet finite, reminders that survival hinged on perfect function. Batteries promised endurance, yet sometimes drained unpredictably, leaving vessel powerless adrift in silent dark. Each flaw was patched, yet none erased. Perfection remained myth, illusion of safety. The crew learned to live with uncertainty, trusting machine-like fragile partner, not guarantee. He studied every weakness, memorizing them, haunted him, but also sharpened him, teaching humility before forces beyond control. The flaws were not deterrent, but reminder. The abyss demanded respect above everything. Circuits could fail, hull could crack, yet dream remained. Larger than fear or weakness, to enter vessel meant accepting flaws, trusting imperfect shield against infinite ocean weight. Flaws made descent terrifying, but also human, because perfection never built true exploration. The crew, scientists, pilots, and outsiders, no dream descends alone. He gathered crew of believers, skeptics, rebels, and scholars together. Scientists brought instruments, pilots brought nerves, outsiders brought questions, and dreamer bound them into one. Each carried their own reason, discovery, redemption, glory, or quiet escape from ordinary life. Arguments erupted often, yet unity emerged, for ocean demanded cooperation above all egos. Scientists mapped data, hydraulics, memorizing every lever, every sequence, rehearsing descents like sacred rituals. Outsiders asked questions, breaking silences, reminding others of human cost beneath technical details. Each personality clashed. They became family, chosen not by blood, but by abyssal ambition shared. They slept beside Vessel 8 under blueprints, laughed rarely, but worked tirelessly against deadlines. Every flaw became lesson, every success celebration, every setback reminder of stakes beneath surface. Some whispered doubts, yet none walked away. All were bound by dreamers' conviction. They carried scars, fears, and secrets, yet together became stronger than solitary vision. This crew, fragile, flawed, and extraordinary, was final ingredient ocean required for destiny. And so, with vessel built and crew chosen, abyss awaited, patient, merciless, and eternal. A rival with shadows in his past, but shadows moved parallel, embodied in rival, man whose past weighed heavier than sea. He was genius too, though reputation tarnished by disaster, whispered behind laboratory doors. Once hailed prodigy, his experiments ended in death. Machines imploding, crews lost without trace. Nations silenced truth, but rumors spread, branding him reckless, dangerous. Redemption at all. Failure hardened him, sharpening obsession, turning curiosity into vengeance against abyss that humiliated him. Unlike protagonist, he sought not communion, but conquest. Determined to dominate ocean's secrets entirely. His machines were colder, efficient, built like weapons, stripped of awe, painted with power. His eyes burned, not with wonder, but with rage, hunger to rewrite. Reputation. He stalked every report, every prototype, always racing, always just behind, or just ahead. For him, abyss was battlefield, chance to silence whispers of ambition without reverence, where protagonists saw life, rival saw trophies. Where one bowed, the other demanded submission. To men, to destinies, one ocean, and single truth waiting in blackest silence below. Their stories collided, intertwined, bound by abyssal stage that would crown only one victor. The race is not spoken of openly, but it is written in headlines and whispers. The newspapers print only fragments, carefully chosen words, hinting at something greater, hidden beneath surface, between the lines. Readers sense urgency, stories of prototypes, disasters, and secretive government funding. Every whisper carries weight, passed in corridors, laboratories, and bars near military ports. Scientists speak cautiously, fearing ears everywhere, but ambition cannot remain hidden for long. The race is not declared, yet everyone involved knows stakes stretch beyond personal triumph. It is written in smudged ink, in coded memos, in glances exchanged across meetings. Every nation watching knows, though no leader admits, that abyss has become battleground. Dreamers become weapons, and vessels become banners, symbols of progress, pride, and fragile superiority. Journalists chase shadows, piecing fragments together, never realizing depth of truths beneath ocean surface. This silence is louder than any declaration, because whispered secrets always burn brightest. The ocean becomes canvas for a war that no politician dares truly name. No speeches are given, no flags raised, but competition bleeds through every headline. Between rumor and reality, myth and measurement, rivalry spreads, invisible yet impossible to ignore. The abyss itself listens, waiting patiently as men prepare their fragile, defiant machines. The race exists in silence, but silence can roar louder than cannon or trumpet. Each test, each launch, each dive becomes another step toward destiny. Every time a vessel touches water, history trembles, unsure whether triumph or tragedy awaits. Tests begin small, measuring bolts, circuits, and glass, but each one carries human lives. Every launch feels like gamble, rolling dice against crushing weight of 10,000 meters. Successes are whispered as proof of destiny, failures buried in silence, masked as routine. Yet nothing feels routine, because each dive reaches further, testing strength of metal and spirit. Destiny is written slowly, rivet by rivet, dive by dive, meter by meter. Pilots strap in, hearts steady but uncertain, knowing next hours may define human limits. Scientists hover, watching screens flicker, praying readings hold. Terrified one spark may unravel everything. Every success breeds new faith. Every failure breeds harder determination to conquer impossible abyss. The vessel itself becomes diary, recording triumphs and fractures, charting journey downward toward destiny. Each dive is rehearsal, symphony of courage, calculation, and fragile partnership between man and machine. For destiny does not come suddenly. It arrives as accumulation of countless fragile moments. Every step toward depth writes story greater than any one man or mission. Tests become battles, launches become chapters, and dives become scripture of ambition's unyielding faith. Destiny waits not above, but below, carved into black silence of ocean's eternal heart. Technology is both savior and saboteur, fragile hulls and imperfect sonar. Every engineer prays their calculations hold, that rivets resist forces unimaginable to ordinary comprehension. Technology is dream's armor, yet also its curse, because every flaw threatens catastrophic failure. Pressure hulls bend imperceptibly, groaning like wounded giants, reminding crew of ocean's merciless patience. Sonar pings scatter, distorted by layers, leaving maps blurred, unreadable, and dangerously misleading. Electric circuits hum, then flicker, betraying fragility of inventions. Meant to guard human survival, batteries drain faster than expected. Lights dim, oxygen dwindles, amplifying terror with every passing second. Technology, though savior, whispers treachery, testing loyalty of those who trust it completely. No machine is flawless. Every strength carries weakness. Every advancement reveals hidden cost beneath the vessel. Miraculous and monstrous feels alive, breathing, unpredictable, capable of salvation or betrayal. For crew, faith in technology becomes ritual, daily prayer. Recited with trembling steel voices, they polish bolts, check gauges, hoping attention wards off ghosts lurking within circuits. Savior and saboteur invention is paradox, carrying humanity downward while threatening to destroy it. The ocean demands humility, punishing arrogance, revealing flaws where confidence once claimed perfection. Each descent is coin toss, balance between genius, invention, and catastrophic collapse. Technology both protects and betrays, like double-edged blade, guiding humanity toward destiny and disaster simultaneously. The ocean waits, patient and unyielding. The sea does not rush, it does not speak, it simply exists, eternal, indifferent. Its patience dwarfs ambition, its silence mocks urgency, its vastness humbles every machine crafted. Pressure builds, not suddenly, but steadily, as if reminding intruders of their fragile mortality. Currents shift quietly, strong as mountains, reshaping paths while appearing calm above. The surface. The ocean neither hates nor welcomes. It simply waits, as it has forever before. Its floors hold scars of earthquakes, volcanoes, meteor impacts, all swallowed without trace or complaint. Mountains higher than Everest sleep beneath waves, hidden from eyes yet looming over explorers. The abyss does not negotiate. It demands, always, full respect or swift destruction. Every moment within its depth is borrowed time, a loan never truly repaid. The ocean's patience is endless, its stillness deceptive, its true face revealed only in silence. It has outlived empires, swallowed navies, devoured islands, waiting without hurry for next intruder. Every vessel that enters carries arrogance of mastery, but ocean has never been mastered. It waits unyielding for dreamers and fools alike, treating both with equal indifference. In its patience lies terror, because humanity craves response, yet ocean offers none. To descend is to converse with silence, and silence always outlasts human words. Those who descend must carry with them not only machines, but their own fragile humanity. Every diver brings not just tools, but fears, dreams, and memories etched upon soul. The descent is mirror, forcing each participant to confront mortality and meaning beneath pressure. Machines may resist, but hearts falter, reminding explorers that courage is not mechanical. Humanity descends with them, fragile, questioning. clinging to beliefs forged on fragile surface. Each breath inside vessel is reminder of life's fragility, of distance from ordinary comforts. Laughter becomes scarce, replaced by whispers, prayers, and nervous glances exchanged through thick glass. No machine can protect against loneliness, fear, or grief buried within human hearts. Descent strips masks away. Ambition cannot hide vulnerability exposed beneath crushing ocean weight. Some carry hope, others regret, all bound by choice to risk for unknown. Together, they discover humanity's true core, small, fragile, yet endlessly driven toward greater horizons. Every meter downward weighs upon spirit, demanding strength not from steel but from soul. Technology carries bodies downward, but courage carries spirits forward, balancing between awe and terror. To descend is to remember humanity is not invincible, but beautifully breakable. Wondrously determined, the abyss becomes judge, weighing not machines but humans, stripping them to essence. Humanity is most fragile cargo, and yet, paradoxically, the strongest force they carry. For every meter down is a meter further from the world they know. At 100 meters, colors fade, red vanishes, leaving only blue and shadows. At 200 meters, lungs strain, pressure, whispers, warnings, though vessel shields, explorers. Within. Every meter downward is meter away from sunlight, air, laughter, and human civilization. The world above becomes distant memory, muffled echo heard faintly through steel. Families, homes, nations fade, replaced by blackness pressing closer, heavier with each descent. Time itself distorts, minutes stretch like hours, distance elongates, boundaries between worlds blur. For crew, every meter downward feels irreversible, as though returning might no longer exist. Each milestone reached is double-edged triumph, celebration laced with dread of deeper separation. The deeper they go, the less human their world feels. Replaced by alien landscapes, the world they leave behind shrinks, until only vessel defines existence. No horizon remains, only walls of pressure, boundaries of hull, and silence outside. Every meter deeper is metaphor, descent into self, peeling away illusions of control. The surface is safety, but also ignorance. Descent is danger, but also revelation. Meters measure not distance alone, but courage, sacrifice, and growing isolation from humanity above. Each meter gained is step away from world, step closer to ocean's eternal embrace. Light fades, voices dim, pressure mounts. Sunlight dies slowly, bleeding into twilight, then surrendering completely to infinite darkness. Voices over radios grow distorted, fading with depth, like memories slipping beyond reach. Pressure creeps silently, invisible hand squeezing vessel tighter, testing every seam, every bolt. The crew feels weight, not just physically, but spiritually. Silence pressing harder than steel. Lights flicker, cutting through blackness, revealing strange creatures glowing, like stars adrift in emptiness. Each pulse of bioluminescence is reminder of life, thriving where humans barely survive. The deeper they go, the more silence dominates, replacing sound with vibrating hum. Machines groan, metal sings under stress, hull whispering warnings in low, eerie tones. Crew members glance nervously, Words, few breaths shallow, fear shared without needing spoken. Language. Outside is infinite night, inside is fragile glow. Two worlds separated by thin wall. Pressure mounts endlessly, invisible but absolute. Force equal to mountains crushing vessel. Every second deepens test of steel, of circuitry, of courage, of humanity's endurance. Light fades to memory. Voices dim to whispers. Pressure becomes ocean's final vocabulary. Here, in crushing dark existence, feels suspended, balanced between triumph and annihilation. Pressure does not relent. It only asks, how much deeper can humans truly go? And in the shadows between nations and ambitions, something stirs beyond machines and men. Ocean hides secrets older than every civilization combined. In trenches untouched by light, movements ripple, faint vibrations suggesting something vast. And alive scientists speculate possibilities. Giant cephalopods, unknown predators, or forces still beyond classification. Nations ignore whispers, focusing on glory, blind to stirrings within blackest voids. But ocean remembers intrusions, recording vibrations, watching with patience, guarding mysteries fiercely. Something stirs, unseen yet undeniable, like curtains shifting before revelation. Crew senses presence, unease creeping, though no instruments confirm. No sonar validates. Eyes strain through windows, yet darkness conceals more than light ever could reveal. Ambition blinds, but instinct screams, warning that not all mysteries welcome intrusion. What stirs below may not tolerate trespassers, may not forgive fragile machines trespassing between politics, science, and rivalry. Something older waits, unconcerned by human pride. Dreamers seek answers, but ocean may offer questions far darker than expected. In shadows, legends awaken, myths breathe, boundaries between superstition and science blur. The deeper they descend, the closer they come to secret best left untouched. Something stirs, silent yet watching, reminding humanity abyss is never truly empty. This is not merely exploration. Exploration seeks knowledge, but this mission seeks more, something closer to conquest. Explorers once mapped coastlines. Now they probe trenches, chasing immortality in darkness. This descent is theater. Stage for nations to prove dominance through fragile machines. The abyss is test, measuring not only science, but pride, patience, and endurance. Exploration carries curiosity, but this carries weight of politics, rivalry, and ambition. Every dive is more than experiment. It is declaration, challenge, assertion of will. The ocean is no museum. It is battlefield where explorers unknowingly march. The stakes stretch further than biology, into territory of identity, history, and legacy. Exploration implies openness, but this is cloaked, concealed, protected by secrecy. Crew members whisper truths, knowing mission is larger than scientific dreams. Every sample collected doubles as trophy. Every photograph becomes evidence of superiority. This is theater disguised as science, war disguised as exploration, myth disguised as measurement. It is race for proof, for dominance, for destiny, written not above, but below. The ocean becomes unwilling stage, forced to host man's eternal struggle for supremacy. This is not exploration. It is confrontation with abyss, and abyss always answers. This is a race into the unknown. Every rival pushes downward, uncertain what lies ahead, driven nonetheless by unstoppable hunger. Unknown is both lure and terror, promising discovery, but threatening annihilation in equal measure. This race does not follow roads, but descends into black, pathless void. Unknown is infinite. Each dive reveals fraction, but questions multiply faster than answers. The crews compete not against each other, but against silence, pressure, and eternity. Every descent writes new page in story, where chapters end with triumph or implosion. The unknown swallows certainty, replacing confidence with humility, erasing illusions of control. To race into unknown is paradox, to seek mastery of that which defies mastery. Yet ambition fuels steps forward, dragging humanity further into night without horizon. The unknown is no finish line, but bottomless expanse, without boundaries, without end. Rivals plunge willingly, though neither knows whether prize is knowledge, survival, or annihilation. Every machine built is wager, every soul aboard stake, every dive coin toss. This is not race with finish line. It is race with abyss. The unknown does not care, but humans continue running, unable to resist eternal lure. This is race not outward, but downward, into silence, shadows, and endless depth. Part 2. The unseen depths and the peril. Intro paragraph. There is a point below the surface where the ocean ceases to feel like water and becomes something entirely alien. The descent begins with beauty, glowing creatures drifting like lanterns, schools of silver that scatter like starlight. But beauty soon dissolves into strangeness. Shapes emerge that defy anatomy. Eyes linger from the dark that should not be there. And the sonar begins to whisper impossible readings. The deeper the crew goes, the more their instruments falter, as if the sea itself bends reality. Machinery groans under pressure, lights flicker, and fear grows thick within the capsule. In the cramped quarters, paranoia takes root. Exhaustion blurs judgment, and every sound becomes a question mark. The rival team, once a distant threat, now moves dangerously close, shadowing their every step into the abyss. Cooperation seems necessary, yet mistrust lingers in every glance. The further they sink, the less the ocean behaves like a sea at all. Gravity feels uncertain, voices echo strangely, and time stretches until minutes feel like hours. The maps they carry no longer match the terrain, as if the ocean floor itself shifts beneath them. An object appears on sonar where nothing should be, and ghostly lights move in the water with a rhythm too deliberate to be chance. The realization spreads among them slowly. They are not approaching a bottom, but something else. What lies ahead is not a floor, but a threshold. The peril is no longer simply the crushing weight of the ocean. It is the unseen truth that lurks within it, the descent beneath the surface. The sea changes from playful shimmer into a crushing, suffocating silence. Every meter downward strips away sunlight, leaving only shadows and cold pressing against fragile steel. There are no certain maps here, only whispers of trenches and ridges hidden in darkness. The descent feels endless, guided by fragile instruments that groan beneath relentless pressure. From all directions, crew members exchange nervous glances, questioning whether their capsule is prepared for such relentless crushing depths. The first minutes hold beauty curtains of bioluminescent creatures painting galaxies across the black void, but the beauty fades, replaced by strangeness that twists imagination into dread. Within the steel chamber, shapes drift past, neither fish nor machine entities, with unblinking eyes that track movements with patience. The sonar reports shifting readings, as though the seafloor itself moves beneath their fragile vessel. Each mechanical groan echoes like thunder, feeding paranoia that steel plates may buckle without warning. Fear becomes constant, not sudden, but growing steadily, like frost crawling across a frozen window. Inside the capsule, breathing feels heavier, as though air itself thickens with shared uncertainty. They cling to rationality, blaming stress and pressure, yet doubt seeps through cracks like water. In that heavy silence, one question lingers: is the danger outside or within themselves? The descent continues, carrying them deeper into waters where even imagination hesitates to follow. The strangeness here, beauty transforms into distortion, and distortion becomes a mirror reflecting the mind's hidden fractures. Bioluminescence no longer comforts it, outlines things that should not exist, drifting silently through abyssal currents. Some appear like skeletons, unfinished designs, abandoned by nature, stitched with luminous threads of eerie light. Others are too vast to comprehend, shadows stretching across windows longer than the vessel itself. Each glimpse corrodes certainty, blurring lines between hallucination and reality. Beneath suffocating, crushing pressure outside, the sonar hisses, impossible signal structures rising, collapsing, rebuilding as though the ocean reconfigures itself endlessly. Machines flicker and instruments fail, yet sometimes reveal patterns suggesting intelligence. Instead of chaotic disorder, crew members whisper theories: unknown species, alien machines, perhaps even ancient cities swallowed by abyss. Paranoia grows with every hour, conversations circling endlessly, unable to decide what truly exists. A wrench dropped echoes like gunfire, setting nerves ablaze, amplifying fear beyond reason or control. Time bends strangely here. Hours stretch into eternities. Minutes collapse into forgettable fragments of silence. Every sound feels intentional: groans in the hull, taps on glass, whispers through static. Sleep brings no relief. Dreams are vivid oceans within oceans, layered infinitely with watching eyes. When waking, they no longer trust each other's accounts. Memories diverge as though minds are rewired. The sea below feels alive, not passive, but attentive, reshaping reality with every crushing heartbeat. The breaking point deeper still. Silence becomes an oppressor, pressing not only on steel, but fragile human thought. The capsule vibrates with strains too delicate for calculation, as though time itself weakens metal. Each light flicker feels deliberate, as if something controls when illumination should falter deliberately. The crew records anomalies, but recordings glitch, showing images of creatures never seen by scientists. A shadow passes by, vast enough to eclipse their vessel entirely, blotting instruments into blindness. When sonar returns, it does not echo back walls, but instead rings infinite, hollow spaces, Claustrophobia claws at them, even in shared silence. As though oxygen grows thinner every breath, one crew member insists they're not descending anymore, but rising, yet gauges scream descent into further unknown. Voices echo wrong, words repeating twice or 3 times, like unseen lips mimic their speech. Paranoia now festers, suspicion blooms, and each face seems stranger, less familiar than hours before. Arguments break, silence follows, then whispers return, muttered. Doubts poisoning trust like rot beneath wood. Every vibration in steel feels like something knocking, asking entry, demanding recognition from explorers. Rational minds collapse, until only instinct remains: flight, fight, or surrender to ocean's devouring embrace. Eyes blur with exhaustion. Yet, within the darkened windows, something blinks back with patient intelligence. At last, the realization surfaces: the abyss is not empty, but conscious and waiting. The isolation inside the capsule, silence gnaws at reason, while loneliness spreads like rust through steel. Each crew member feels distance growing, not only physically, but inside fragile corners of collapsing minds. Conversations falter, replaced with stares that linger too long, questioning trust, searching for hidden betrayal. Food loses taste, water grows bitter, and every action feels rehearsed inside suffocating repetition endlessly. They write journals, but words blur, sentences break, meaning fades before ink even dries. Dreams invade waking hours, leaking fragments of impossible visions into thoughts, confusing day with night. Clocks tick wrong, time loops, and no one remembers when descent began, or if ended. Isolation warps perception. Even friendly faces morph into strangers wearing masks of unrecognizable expressions. Messages to surface go unanswered, replaced by static, as if ocean swallows every signal. The radio hisses languages unknown, voices whispering syllables not human, yet disturbingly articulate and familiar. Every creak feels personal, as though steel itself resents their intrusion. Plotting quiet betrayal patiently, hands tremble, eyes dart, paranoia blossoms, until companionship feels more dangerous than abyss outside. Isolation becomes the deepest pressure, not water, but silence, compressing humanity into fragile fragments. They realize the ocean does not kill quickly, erodes slowly, thought by thought, endlessly, and in that erosion, their humanity feels like sand slipping between ungraspable, trembling fingers. The apparition's darkness outside the window's births shapes that mimic memory. Illusions, impossible, yet undeniably observed together. Faces appear, pressed against glass, familiar yet impossible, watching with mournful patience before fading away. Sometimes, voices call names, exactly as lost relatives once spoke, luring them toward impossible doors. Other times, reflections remain after movement stops. Smiles frozen long after their owners have turned. The crew debates hallucination, yet shared visions raise questions about sanity or external influence unseen. Figures drift by like specters, carrying lanterns of glowing organs, vanishing when light beams strike. Even instruments reflect anomaly shadows recorded on sonar. Heat signatures without bodies, impossibilities logged faithfully. The capsule becomes haunted, not by spirits, but by the abyss manifesting minds against themselves. They argue whether sea remembers everything lost ships, sailors, bones, and reshapes them into watching echoes. Laughter bursts suddenly, nervous or hysterical, as apparitions dance endlessly. Beyond the fragile windows, sleep is impossible now. Dreams bleed into waking hours, blurring perception into fractured realities unendingly. When questioned, memories differ. Some saw strangers, others saw themselves, warped and drowned beyond recognition. One crew member swears they heard their own voice outside, calling them down, beckoning without mercy. Another insists they saw land, a city shining below, impossible. Yet cruelly convincing in detail, the apparitions remain. Relentless reminders that abyss does not only swallow it, remembers, reshapes, returns. The abyss stares back the deeper they go. The more ocean feels aware, watching through silence, with patient intelligence. Not indifferent water, but an entity, vast enough to cradle continents and erase civilizations whole. Every sound becomes intentional. Every anomaly feels directed, as if abyss manipulates their fragile descent. Gauges betray them readings, spin wildly, then stabilize with numbers suggesting infinite depth below fragile hull. The abyss speaks without words, through pressure waves, sonar distortions, and visions etched in fragile minds. Crew members realize they are not explorers anymore. They are specimens being studied, examined, dissected. The ocean does not resist them. It accommodates, adjusts, reshapes environment to hold them longer. Instruments fail in synchrony, suggesting orchestration rather than coincidence, control rather than chaotic mechanical collapse. One crew member swears they felt heartbeat pulsing through water as if abyss itself was alive. Another swears their own thoughts echoed back, distorted, repeated, tested like insects beneath magnifying glass. Sleep becomes impossible whispers, keep rhythm with heartbeats, promising revelations if they only surrender deeper. Descent is no longer measured in meters, but insanity eroded, identity peeled like layers. The abyss demands recognition, not as place, but as presence. Ancient and infinitely patient beyond measure. They realize truth too late. They are not observing abyss. The abyss is observing them. And when abyss stares back, it does not blink, because it has no need to. The secret revealed, that final depth. Silence breaks, not with collapse, but with revelation etched into fragile minds. They witness architecture impossible, structures vast and luminous, stretching across ocean floor like forgotten kingdoms. Columns rise higher than skyscrapers, carved with symbols that pulse faintly, alive with hidden intent. It is no ruin, but a system, functioning, watching, shifting, as if still operational, not human, not terrestrial. Something older, deeper, born when Earth was still molten fire. The secret is clear. Abyss does not merely contain life, is life itself embodied. Civilization drowned, not by accident, but because ocean claimed, absorbed, reshaped them into eternal existence. Their instruments record nothing. Cameras fail. Only human memory carries the impossible vision witnessed below. Crew members realize survival means silence. No one above must know what abyss still guards. knowledge itself feels corrosive, rewiring thought, whispering loyalty, demanding they become part of secret themselves. When ascent begins, ocean resists, pulling, dragging, reminding them leaving does not mean true escape. One by one, their minds fracture, some laughing, some weeping, as truth erodes identity completely. The deepest secret is not pressure, darkness, or creatures. It is ocean's memory of everything. They return changed, bodies intact, minds shattered, carrying abyss within them wherever surface light shines, and in silence, they understand. Humanity never discovered abyss allowed humanity to discover it. The fractured mind's paranoia becomes a second atmosphere, thicker than water, heavier than pressure, crushing fragile thought. Crew members speak less, but hear more footsteps, whispers, laughter from places capsule walls cannot contain. Arguments flare over nothing, small gestures interpreted as threats. Silence mistaken for betrayal brewing violence. One insists they never descended, but were swallowed, imprisoned in hallucination crafted by abyssal intelligence. Another refuses food, swearing rations are bait, lures crafted to weaken bodies for unseen predators. Their reflections no longer match, eyes slightly misaligned, expressions wrong, as though mirrors conceal intruders. Language breaks apart, words repeat endlessly, voices overlap, communication dissolves into meaningless fragments. Of sound, they cling to logbooks, but handwriting shifts, entries contradict, sentences morph into unreadable, alien symbols. Sanity feels optional, stripped like paint, flaking away, revealing primal fear beneath civilized exteriors. Some laugh endlessly, claiming freedom. Others weep silently, unable to explain what abyss whispered privately. Shared hallucinations bloom, yet each insists their version is real. Truth splintering into irreconcilable shards. Trust collapses completely. Companionship turns predator. Survival feels lonelier than abyss outside blackened glass. Time fractures, further minutes stretch, hours collapse. No one knows how long descent truly lasted. The mind, not steel, proves weakest barrier against abyssal weight pressing endlessly against human souls. Here, reality breaks, and once fractured, no hand, no voice can piece it together. The false ascent finally, gauges whisper assent, but relief feels hollow, distorted, to clean, like rehearsed performance. Outside windows, light returns, pale, strange, shimmering wrong, bending, as if refracted through liquid glass. They cheer weakly, yet silence follows. Suspicion gnaws that assent may not be genuine. Above, shapes move like clouds, but too sharp, too deliberate, shifting with unearthly geometry. Crew insists surface is close, yet sonar still echoes infinite descent. Contradiction impossible to reconcile. Breaths come quicker, as though air thins, capsule straining between rising upward and sinking further. One crew member screams, surface is lie. Abyss crafting illusion to test, to bind, to consume. Another prays, aloud, convinced salvation nears, blind to cracks spreading across capsule-like spiderwebs. Instruments betray them again. Readings loop endlessly, numbers repeating, coordinates refusing to change despite motion. Hatches groan, metal sighs, as though unseen hands pull vessel upward, against all natural force, through glass, horizon flickers, like film burning, glimpses of both sea and something else entirely. False dawn bleeds across windows. A light without warmth, a sky without stars. Above, hope clashes with dread. Truth dissolves. They cannot tell if they're ascending or endlessly descending. The surface, once sanctuary, now feels hostile, an extension of abyss masquerading as deliverance. They realize cruel truth in abyss. Ascent may simply be another deeper layer. The eternal depth that last. Truth crystallizes. Not all journeys end. Some spiral infinitely deeper, beyond measurement, beyond return. The abyss is endless, not bottom, but labyrinth, folding upon itself. Dimensions uncountable, incomprehensible, internally. Every descent breeds new descent. Every floor births another, depth multiplying infinitely beneath fragile human comprehension. They understand now why legends whisper of sailors lost forever, not drowned, but wandering eternal descent. Machines cannot escape. Time bends, gravity twists, direction loses meaning. Depth swallows every definition entirely. The abyss is not destination, but prison. An endless cycle devouring explorers, erasing their existence. Crew becomes memory, memory becomes echo, echo becomes nothing, yet abyss remembers, reshapes, recycles endlessly. Steel rusts, bodies decay, but thoughts linger, stolen, stored, replayed by abyss like treasured relics. They are no longer explorers, no longer alive, no longer dead, only absorbed into ocean. Eternal depth demands no rescue, no end, no conclusion, only surrender to infinite continuation. Surface never existed, only illusion. There is only water, only pressure, only infinite layered darkness. Time no longer marches, sit coils, returns, devours itself, leaving souls trapped in recursive descent. Every discovery, every fear, every revelation was always orchestrated abyss, rehearsing new plays with human actors. And when final light flickers out, they know truth. Abyss has no end, only eternity. The abyss does not wait to be discovered. It waits to discover you, forever, forever. The rivalry in the void rival teams, once distant rumors, now drift dangerously close within the same crushing void. Their machines flicker faintly, silhouettes against abyssal black, proof that ambition drives humans to madness. To madness, competition grows sharper here, where survival is uncertain and victory may cost more than life. Every glance outward carries tension, wondering if shadows belong to allies, enemies, or something else. The abyss does not separate them. Instead, it binds rivals together in terrifying shared vulnerability. Whispers travel through static, broken transmissions carrying threats, bargains, and fears into steel-walled capsules. Every rival presence is both reassurance of humanity and reminder of conflict lurking beneath desperation. Distance collapses. Now they are neighbors within emptiness, companions and adversaries in equal terrifying measure. Rivalry once meant race for glory. Here, rivalry may mean survival, stolen from another. Trust cannot exist. Not fully, not here, where depth warps loyalties faster than crushing pressure. Each crew wonders, betray before betrayed, strike before struck, or cling desperately to fragile alliances. The void turns competition into paranoia, until rivalry itself feels like another lurking predator. Here, the abyss hosts not only monsters unseen, but humans desperate, cunning, and endlessly fearful. Every encounter risks collapse, not mechanical failure, but betrayal, cutting deeper than abyssal silence outside. The void ensures rivalries grow sharper, deadlier. When surrounded by endless ocean without escape, the weight of choices, their presence, adds weight to every choice. Share resources, deceive rivals, or betray without hesitation. Decisions feel heavier here, as though abyss itself magnifies consequences. Until unbearable pressure fractures will dot to share is weakness. Perhaps survival, perhaps doom and certainty gnaws each choice before action even begins. To deceive means risk, for abyss records every lie, reflecting them back through warped transmissions. To betray ensures survival for one day, but condemns tomorrow, haunted by guilt and vengeance. The capsule walls seem to breathe with decisions, echoing heartbeats quickened by impossible burdens carried. Every meal, every drop of oxygen, every repair becomes currency traded in silence. Suspicion, choice, is not freedom here. Choice is weight, dragging deeper, heavier than crushing external pressure. Voices falter, hesitation spreads, as though every decision splinters crew unity into fragile, jagged shards. The abyss listens, silent judge, indifferent to morality, caring only that choices weaken fragile humans. Rival teams mirror their dilemmas, faces ghostly in glass, asking same questions through muted fear. Each choice lingers like shadow, haunting them long after action, long after words have spoken. The weight is unbearable because ocean offers no mercy, only mirrors of human desperation. And so every choice becomes betrayal of trust, of survival, or of self-inevitable, unavoidable, absolute. The abyss ensures no choice leads upward, only further downward into silence without end. The ocean shifts the deeper they go, the less the ocean behaves like any recognizable sea at all. Currents twist sideways, sometimes upward, sometimes folding back, as though water itself denies natural law. Pressure no longer increases steadily. It pulses rhythmically, like heartbeat measured against their fragile steel. Instruments fail, not through damage, but contradiction, depth, and salinity. Readings dance with impossible variations. Even temperature bends unpredictably. Pockets of warmth blooming in regions supposedly frozen forever below. Water resists analysis. It is no longer medium, but environment alive, defying comprehension entirely. Crew records everything. Yet evidence feels unstable, shifting, rewriting itself when observed too closely afterward. They realize ocean is not landscape, not backdrop, but participant in descent, unpredictable and aware. Fish-like creatures swim against no current, their paths erratic, as though pulled by unseen geometries. Walls of black water appear, like curtains, then dissolve, revealing worlds hidden just seconds before. The sea changes shape with every kilometer, mutating not only environment, but human certainty itself. Crew loses orientation. Trust in instruments fades, leaving instinct their only compass against liquid labyrinth. The ocean is not sea anymore, it is shape-shifting abyss, conscious, reshaping truth as it wills. Every descent feels like trespass, across borders not meant for fragile humans, not meant for life. And each shift whispers silently, "You are not welcome. You are only tolerated briefly." Gravity and time distort. Gravity feels uncertain here, refusing to pull straight down, bending strangely across warped abyssal planes. Objects float oddly, drifting sideways, then falling abruptly, as though invisible hands manipulate their weight. Time itself warps. Seconds stretch unbearably, while hours collapse into fragments unnoticed until afterward. Clocks tick wrong. Digital timers loop endlessly, making navigation feel like hallucination instead of measurement. Voices echo strangely, delayed sometimes, repeating, sometimes arriving before words even leave. Trembling lips. Crew debates whether machines are broken or whether abyss rewrites very rules of reality itself. Dreams intrude on waking life, time folding upon itself until memory dissolves into seamless repetition. They cannot tell if descent took days, weeks, or if eternity passed in suffocating moments. Even hunger falters. Stomachs ache, but rations remain untouched. Time erasing appetite from fragile minds. Gravity crushes, then releases, pulling violently, then ceasing altogether, hurling capsules like toys in whirlpools. Every distortion whispers possibility, perhaps. Abyss is not within Earth, but beyond. Outside reality itself. Crew writes records obsessively, yet words rearrange when read again. Time mocking certainty with cruel repetition. Fear deepens not of pressure, not of drowning, but of being lost outside linear time. Time distortion fractures unitists, insist they've already ascended. Others swear descent hasn't begun yet. The abyss erases clocks, leaving only heartbeats, irregular, fragile, final, against eternities. Endless silence. The false floor every reading. Every glimpse suggests that depth itself is not truly what they first believed. The seabed never approaches. No matter descent, only further depth, stretching like infinite abyssal staircase. Sonar lies, mapping floors that vanish, ridges collapsing, valleys stretching deeper with every new measurement. Instruments suggest arrival, yet windows reveal only more darkness, endless void swallowing hope without mercy. The ocean does not possess bottom. It folds, resets, conceals depths like infinite recursive labyrinth. Every floor is threshold to another, as if sea births new layers beneath. Explorers. Crew realizes descent is not vertical, but dimensional, moving sideways, down, and inward. Simultaneously, pressure plateaus briefly, then deepens again, mocking expectation of end with new crushing intensities. Steel bends, groans, but no seabed greets them, only endless reminder of futility below. The abyss does not reveal itself, it deceives, teasing humans with glimpses of false completion. Each end is illusion, each resting point only doorway deeper into infinite abyssal hunger. The false floor teaches one lesson. Abyss is not measured, it is endured without end. Crew despairs. Hope collapses, replaced with dread of eternal descent without arrival. Without resolution, they stare through windows into black void, knowing truth. Abyss has no floor, only thresholds, and every threshold crossed erases another fragment of humanity, replacing it with endless silence. The threshold is not a floor they approach, but a threshold separating familiar reality from unknown. The abyss does not merely deepen, it transforms, growing stranger with every impossible kilometer beneath them. The threshold hums, invisible but undeniable, felt through instruments failing, minds fracturing, bodies trembling violently. Crew senses they cross border between science and myth, physics and nightmare, knowledge and oblivion. Symbols flash across failing monitors, unfamiliar yet deliberate, like invitations carved into electronic static itself. Pressure no longer crushes. It vibrates, as though threshold itself sings, demanding recognition from intruders. Crew argues, is this natural or engineered? A doorway built deliberately into Earth's deepest waters. Threshold mocks certainty, forcing them to abandon science, to confront faith in darkness beyond imagination. Crossing feels irreversible, like shedding skin, stepping from life into unknown, awaiting without mercy. The abyss opens, not outward, but inward, pulling them through veil stretched across reality itself. Thresholds do not ask permission, they devour. They absorb, they transform those daring to cross recklessly. Once crossed, they realize ocean never meant depth as destination. Threshold was true secret all along. Beyond lies not water, not seabed, but something else entirely, infinite, terrifying, calling relentlessly. Crew cannot return. Threshold has closed behind, leaving them swallowed within ocean's deeper secret chamber. And silence there is not empty, but full, humming with presence, waiting patiently beyond. The silence the ocean offers no answers, only silence, heavier than steel, more suffocating than water. Yet silence here is never empty. It crawls, whispers, presses upon skulls like weight. Every creak echoes, magnified, transformed into language. Unspoken, a dialogue between abyss and intruders. Crew fears sound, yet fears silence more, for silence feels alive, attentive, impossibly patient. Even machines falter in silence. Static dies, hums vanish, leaving nothing but suffocating void. Silence distorts thoughts, shaping paranoia, birthing questions unasked, demanding answers humans cannot provide truthfully. Sleep becomes impossible. Silence screams louder than voices, filling capsule until minds fracture beneath pressure. Silence grows intelligent, arranging pauses into rhythms, shaping unspoken syllables into deliberate haunting presence. They realize silence here is not absence, but communication. Abyss speaking, without words, demanding recognition. No one responds, yet silence grows heavier, crushing, louder, until every heartbeat feels broadcast outward. Crew wonders, what if silence is trap, waiting for response before consuming intruders entirely? Their mouths dry, throats ache, yet words cannot form against silence, devouring them relentlessly. They pray for noise, even destructive noise, but silence swallows even their prayers immediately. The abyss proves most terrifying weapon is silence, echoing endlessly inside fragile human skulls. And within that silence, they know they are heard, though they never hear reply. The waiting presence, something waits where no one has ever been. Presence, vast, unseen, yet undeniable in silence. Crew senses it without sight, without sound, through pressure bending, instruments failing, hearts racing uncontrollably. It is not creature, not landscape, but something in between. Intelligence diffused across infinite abyssal depth. Presence feels patient, ancient, watching without movement, studying them as entomologists study fragile, pinned insects. Every vibration in hull feels like touch, every groan like whisper, every echo like breath. The waiting does not rush. It lingers, savoring their fear, testing their resolve, eroding resistance. Crew debates if presence wants worship, surrender, or merely recognition, but Abyss provides no confirmation. It waits not passively, but actively, arranging silence, distortions, illusions, pulling them closer without effort. They realize descent is not mistaken was invitation, threshold leading directly to waiting presence. Instruments begin aligning, not randomly, but deliberately, as though calibrated by presence itself watching them. Each anomaly reveals intention. Each distortion feels crafted. Nothing in Abyss is coincidence anymore. The waiting presence fills capsule, not physically, but mentally, saturating thoughts until no privacy remains. Crew feels watched from within. Thoughts echoed outward, secrets laid bare, stripped of protective silence. Something waits, not to attack, not to kill, but to know, to understand completely. And knowledge in Abyss is not gifted, is trap, irreversible, devouring identity entirely. The true peril, the peril, is no longer the descenteth, is what lies unseen beyond threshold, waiting. Depth was illusion. Peril was always presence, silence, Abyss itself, demanding sacrifice from intruders. Crew fears collapse, drowning, pressure. But greater fear blooms, surrendering minds to abyssal consciousness. They realize peril is not death, but transformation, absorption into ocean's eternal memory system. Every fear they carried is reflected, magnified, weaponized by Abyss until resistance becomes impossible. The peril was never depth, was discovery. Knowledge too vast for fragile human comprehension. Their instruments fail permanently, but not randomly. They fail exactly when truth becomes undeniable. Truth is peril, because truth cannot be returned to surface without consequence for humanity. The Abyss chose them, not as explorers, but as vessels to carry knowledge upward. But knowledge reshapes. Carriers makes them fragments of Abyss, half human, half memory, neither alive nor dead. Peril waits not in crushing depths, but in transformation they cannot prevent, only delay briefly. The Abyss does not kill, it converts, it absorbs. It ensures nothing is ever truly lost. Crew realizes final peril. They are no longer explorers, but messengers carrying Abyss inside themselves. Return means contamination, silence, broken. Abyss rising slowly into human world above, endless, unstoppable. And so peril remains unseening, not monster, not catastrophe, but truth, waiting silently within their minds. Part 3. The climax and the secret, revealed intro, paragraph. Every journey must reach an ending, yet in the ocean's depths, the end is never what it seems. For the crew, the breaking point arrives not with triumph, but with failure. A flicker in the lights, a crack in the hull, and the sudden silence of instruments that no longer function. Beyond the last known depth, the sea changes its very nature. Sonar returns nothing. Geological certainty dissolves, and the darkness presses in as if alive. The rivalries that once defined this mission begin to unravel in the face of something greater, though pride still whispers in the silence. And then the revelation: there is no bottom. The trench they sought does not end, but falls away into a void without measure, a space that should not exist. In that moment, visions or, perhaps, hallucinations appear before them. Some see living forms, vast as mountains. Others sense voices buried in static, while a few believe they glimpse ruins of civilizations lost to time. The truth is too large for human comprehension, too fragile to carry back to the surface intact. To reveal it might fracture the world's sense of reality. To conceal it might bury knowledge forever. Sacrifices are made in the abyss, as not all can return, and choices must be forged in the press of darkness. Those who survive reach the surface changed beyond recognition, bearing a secret that governments seek to bury, and that humanity may never be ready to face. The climax is not victory nor defeat, but revelation, and revelation is a weight heavier than any ocean. There comes a moment when the journey must end, or become something else. There comes a moment when the journey must end, or become something else, and that moment is not always sharp, not always final. 4 endings can arrive like tides, gently, slowly, carrying us from one place to another, reminding us that every path, no matter how endless it may seem, must eventually turn, must eventually fade, must eventually give way to what follows. And so, as we drift at the edge of this great ocean of thought, we sense the horizon before us, a horizon not of water or of sky, but of change itself. And the sea teaches us that change is never abrupt. It is the slow blending of currents, the way blue turns to black, the way silence takes the place of sound, the way night folds gently over day. And in this we learn that the ending of a journey, it is not a collapse, but a transformation. For to end is to begin again, to release one shape and allow another to emerge, to let the chapter close and the next page open. And so we rest in that truth, letting go of the thought of finality, holding instead the thought of continuation, a softer truth, a calmer truth, that no voyage is wasted, no step is lost, no descent is meaningless, for even at the bottom of the deepest trench, life endures, beauty endures, mystery endures. And just as the ocean has no true end, only layers upon layers, so too do our journeys never truly finish. They simply flow into other forms, other directions, other silences. And perhaps this is why we seek the ocean, why we dream of it, why we listen to it, because it reminds us that to stop moving does not mean to vanish, to rest does not mean to end, to sleep does not mean to be gone. It only means to enter another space, another rhythm, another kind of depth. And in this gentle understanding we find peace, we find acceptance. We find comfort in knowing that we do not need to hold on forever, that we can release and still be carried, that we can drift and still arrive, that we can pause and still continue, because there comes a moment when the journey must end, or become something else. And when it becomes something else, it is not a loss, it is a gift. It is the opening of another horizon, the quiet welcome of another dawn, the soft calling of another tide. And so let this be our moment, not an end, not a finish, but a surrender into something wider, deeper, calmer. And as the ocean continues to breathe beneath the stars, As the waves continue to move unseen across the world, let us close our eyes and know that our own journey to flows on, endlessly, into whatever comes next. For the crew, this moment arrives with a shudder in the hull and a flicker in the lights. For the crew, this moment arrives with a shudder in the hull and a flicker in the lights. The kind of tremor that is not violent, not catastrophic, but enough to remind them that they are far from land, far from air, far from the comfort of certainty. And yet they remain calm, because they have been here before, because they know that the ocean speaks in groans of steel and whispers of current, because every sound has meaning, and every vibration tells a story, and so they listen, steady, breathing slowly, waiting for the hum of the engines to even out again, waiting for the lights to steady into their dim glow, and when they do, when the silence of the deep returns, they exhale together, a crew bound not only by duty, but by trust, by the simple fact that to go this deep, one must trust one another, absolutely, and in that trust lies their strength. And so the vessel presses forward, inching down into a world without sun, where the water grows colder, heavier, darker, a place where the pressure outside the walls is beyond imagination, where every square inch of steel holds back a crushing weight. And yet, within this fragile shell of metal, life continues. Voices murmur, instruments blink, pens scratch notes into logbooks, and it feels almost ordinary, almost routine. And that is what amazes them most, the way the extraordinary becomes normal when lived day by day, the way human beings adapt to places that should not be theirs, the way courage can become quiet, the way fear can become background noise. And as they descend, they know they are reaching the point of no return, a place so deep that no rope could pull them back, no signal could reach them easily, no rescue could arrive in time, and yet they keep going, not from recklessness, but from purpose, from the knowledge that their journey is not only for themselves, but for everyone who has ever wondered how deep the ocean is, how far life can reach, how much darkness the earth can hold. And so they continue, even as the hull creaks softly like an old tree in a storm, even as the lights flicker now and then with the strain of the descent. They continue, because this is the moment they trained for, the moment they dreamed of, the moment they risked everything to find. And when the shudder passes, when the silence holds once more, they realize that fear has softened into awe, that dread has become reverence, that what they are hearing is not danger, but the voice of the ocean itself, welcoming them deeper, carrying them further into mystery, into silence, into the place where the known world ends and something else begins. And though they cannot see it yet, though their eyes are fixed only on glowing dials and faint outlines, in the cabin they feel it, they sense it, the immensity around them, the depth below them, the truth that they are now part of something larger, something timeless. And so they let the vessel sink, steady and true, into that waiting dark, carried by courage, carried by trust, carried by the gentle reminder that the journey has not ended, but changed, that what lies ahead may be dangerous, but also beautiful, and that, in the flicker of lights and the shudder of steel, they have been reminded not of their weakness, but of the ocean's strength, a strength vast enough to hold them, vast enough to hold everything, vast enough to remind them that no matter how deep they go, the sea always goes deeper still, beyond the last known depth. The ocean changes its language, beyond the last known depth. The ocean changes its language, no longer speaking in waves and currents, but in silence, in pressure, in a stillness so absolute that it feels like another world. And those who descend far enough begin to understand that this silence is not empty, but full of weight, full of time, full of the memory of the earth itself. For here the ocean does not crash or roar, it hums in frequencies too low for the human ear, vibrations that pass through steel, through skin, through bone, whispers that belong not to surface winds, but to the very crust of the planet. And in this place words lose meaning, voices become fragile. Light itself is no longer a language that works, because the dark is complete. So the ocean speaks in different forms, through bioluminescent sparks that drift like sentences made of stars, through sudden pulses of sound from creatures hidden in blackness, through the groan of shifting ridges where the seafloor itself is alive, opening and closing with volcanic heat. And for the rare human who journeys this far, the experience is not just exploration, but translation, learning to listen with the whole body, learning to feel what cannot be heard, learning to accept that the ocean's deepest truth is not spoken, but carried in silence, carried in pressure, carried in the presence of a darkness so pure it becomes light in another sense, the light of understanding, the light of surrender, the light of awe. And perhaps this is why only a few have dared, for to come here is not to conquer, but to be changed, to let go of the need to measure, to let go of the need to control, to let go of the need to know, and to instead drift in mystery, to trust that the ocean holds you as it holds everything, that the ocean has been here long before language, long before memory, long before we asked our first questions of it, and it will be here long after, speaking in its own way, speaking without words, without sound, without need for translation. And so beyond the last known depth, we do not hear the ocean, we become part of it, part of its silence, part of its rhythm, part of its endless story. And in that joining we understand something new, that the journey into depth is never about reaching the bottom, never about drawing a line or planting a flag, but about realizing that there is no true bottom, no true ending, only further, only deeper, only more. And with that realization comes peace. A peace as vast as the trenches, as calm as the black water, as steady as the unseen currents that carry life where no light falls. And in this peace, the ocean whispers without words. You are small, but you belong. You are fragile, but you are held. You are passing, but you are part of something eternal. And that is enough. No more sonar echoes. No more geological certainty. No more sonar echoes. No more geological certainty. Only silence. Only weight. Only the endless dark pressing in on every side. And this is the threshold the ocean keeps for itself. The line where our tools falter, where our measurements lose meaning, where our confidence fades into humility. And here the crew understands that the maps they brought are not guides, but memories, fragile sketches of a surface world that no longer applies. For in this place, the ocean does not care for our instruments. It does not care for our coordinates. It does not care for the precision of our mathematics. It moves in ways we cannot chart. It shifts in ways we cannot anticipate. It holds secrets older than the continents, and with every passing meter downward, certainty becomes something softer, not a sharp edge, but a dissolving shape, a mist of possibility, and the vessel creaks again, gently, as though reminding them that they are strangers here, guests in a place not built for lungs, not built for light, not built for sound. And still they descend, trusting steel to hold back mountains of water, trusting engines to keep their course, trusting each other to remain steady in the face of the unknown. And as the instruments begin to fail, one by one, needles drifting without anchors, lights flickering without pattern, they realize that this is not failure, this is initiation. For to pass into the ocean's deepest silence is to surrender the language of machines, and to enter the language of the deep itself, a language of stillness, of vibration too subtle for sonar, of pressure too great for calculation, of darkness too complete for any spectrum of light. And it is in this surrender that they begin to feel something greater, the vastness itself, pressing not only against the vessel, but against their thoughts, against their memories, against their sense of scale, as if the ocean is not just outside them, but inside them. And in this moment, they are no longer explorers, mapping a frontier. They are witnesses, listeners, guests in a cathedral without walls. And the silence is not empty, it is full, full of time, full of patience, full of the unmeasured ages the ocean has kept hidden. And here, with no more sonar echoes, with no more geological certainty, they discover something else, something quieter, something older than knowledge. They discover awe, and awe is enough. Awe is always enough. And so they let go of certainty, they let go of maps, they let go of numbers, and they drift instead into trust, into wonder, into the realization that not all questions must be answered, not all depths must be measured, not all journeys must be completed. Some may only be lived, some may only be felt. And as they surrender to that truth, the silence deepens, the darkness softens, and the ocean, vast and patient, holds them in its timeless embrace. Only darkness that feels alive, watching. Only darkness that feels alive, watching. Not the empty darkness of a closed room, not the simple absence of light, but a living dark, a dark that moves, a dark that listens, a dark that presses in with weight and patience. And as the vessel sinks into it, the crew begins to sense what words cannot quite capture, that the ocean here is not a space but a presence, vast, endless, aware in ways beyond thought, aware in ways beyond sound, aware in the steady silence that feels closer than breathing, closer than heartbeat, and every flicker of light on the control panel feels like an intrusion. Every hum of machinery like a foreign voice in a cathedral that does not belong to them. For this is not their world, not their element, not their domain. This is the ocean's own chamber, sealed and eternal, and it allows them to pass only so far, only so deep, before reminding them of their fragility. And in that reminder lies both fear and awe, because though they are tiny, though they are breakable, though they are fleeting, they are here, held in the gaze of a darkness that does not need eyes to see, and in that gaze they are stripped, reduced to what they truly are, living beings adrift in a greater living whole. And though the charts spoke of pressure, though the gauges spoke of numbers, though the training spoke of risk, none of it prepared them for this sensation, the sensation of being inside a body not their own, inside a mind not their own, inside a silence that feels like thought. And slowly they realize that this is why the ocean has always been mystery, why it has always called to sailors, to dreamers, to wanderers, because beneath its surface lies not just depth, but presence, not just darkness, but awareness. And as they continue to drift, as the lights dim further, as the hull creaks and sighs, with the strain of the world above pressing down, they stop thinking of progress. They stop thinking of distance. They stop thinking of the bottom. For the bottom no longer matters. What matters is this encounter, this realization, this stillness that holds them with the quiet attention of something older than language, older than memory, older than the countenance themselves. And it is not cruel, it is not kind, it simply is. And in that pure existence, the crew begins to soften, begins to feel less like explorers and more like listeners, less like intruders and more like children being told a story too large to understand. And in that story they hear nothing, yet feel everything, the pulse of unseen currents, the shifting of unseen creatures, the patience of stone buried miles beneath, the gentle hum of the earth itself, and all of it held in a darkness that feels alive, watching, not to threaten, not to judge, but to remind them that the ocean has no need for light to see, no need for sound to speak, no need for words to tell its truth, for its truth is here, around them, within them, above them, below them, endless and whole. And in that truth they find not terror, but peace, the peace that comes when one realizes that they do not need to understand everything. They do not need to control everything. They do not need to reach the end of everything, because some mysteries are not meant to be solved, only to be felt. And in this alive darkness, this watching silence, they finally allow themselves to rest, to surrender, to drift, and in drifting, to belong. The rivalries that fueled them to this point dissolve in the face of something greater. The rivalries that fueled them to this point dissolve in the face of something greater. For competition has no weight here. Pride has no voice here. Ambition has no shape here. And all the restless energy that once burned within them, that once pushed them forward against one another, against themselves, now softens, now fades, now melts into the silence of the deep, because in this place the ocean is not interested in victories or defeats, not interested in which flag they carry or which name they bear. The ocean is older than rivalry, older than history, older than the restless tides of ambition that churn in human hearts. And so the crew feels their rivalries fall away like shadows. At night, unneeded, forgotten, dissolved by the immensity of what surrounds them. And they realize that this descent is not about winning, not about proving, not about conquering. It is about listening. It is about surrendering. It is about being present in the vastness of something that dwarfs every quarrel, every headline, every prize. For the deeper they sink, the less their differences matter, the less their fears matter, the less even their names matter. And they begin to understand that they are not opponents but companions, not separate but bound together, each breath depending on the other, each life entrusted to the same fragile shell of steel. And as the hull creaks, as the pressure builds, as the instruments flicker in uncertain light, they do not think of rivals, they think of survival, they think of wonder, they think of the rare privilege of seeing what so few have seen, of touching the edge of a mystery that belongs to no nation, no individual, no crew, but to the earth itself. And here, in this stillness, they feel unity, a unity forged not by choice, but by necessity, not by politics, but by presence, not by treaties, but by awe. And they begin to sense that what they are witnessing is far greater than the sum of their ambitions, far deeper than the roots of their rivalry. For, in the face of this pressure, in the face of this silence, in the face of this dark that feels alive, watching, all human contests are reduced to what they truly are: temporary, fleeting, fragile, like sparks on the surface of a sea, too vast to notice. And yet, instead of despair, they feel release, release from the weight of proving themselves, release from the demand to win, release from the old patterns that brought them here. And in that release comes peace. Peace in the knowledge that they are not here to outshine each other, but to witness together, to listen together, to be humbled together. And perhaps that is the true gift of this descent, that in seeking the deepest place on earth, they have found something deeper still. The truth that some forces are too vast for rivalry, too eternal for competition, too infinite for ownership. And that, in the end, the ocean does not divide. It erases division. It gathers all into its stillness. It holds all in its depths. And so, in the presence of something greater, the rivalries that once fueled them dissolve completely, leaving only silence, leaving only awe, leaving only the shared heartbeat of those who have glimpsed the immeasurable. And in that heartbeat, they finally understand what it means to be small, to be together, and to belong. Yet pride still lingers, even as survival hangs by threads of oxygen. Yet pride still lingers, even as survival hangs by threads of oxygen, fragile as the thin hiss of air circulating through the vessel, fragile as the blinking red digits that count down reserves in silence, fragile as the breath that fogs the glass before vanishing into nothing. And though they know they are deep beyond rescue, deep beyond certainty, deep beyond every comfort, they once trusted, still within them, a voice whispers of accomplishment, a voice whispers of triumph, a voice whispers of legacy, and it clings to them even as their bodies ache from the pressure, even as their nerves tremble with exhaustion, even as the ocean presses its immensity against the hull like a hand too vast to comprehend. And perhaps it is inevitable, for pride is not so easily surrendered. Pride is stitched into the human will to reach further, to climb higher, to dive deeper, to do what has never been done before. And so, even here, on the edge of silence, on the edge of collapse, pride murmurs in their thoughts, reminding them that they are not only surviving, but achieving, not only clinging to life, but carving their names into history. And though the oxygen may be finite, though their instruments may falter, though their bodies may fail, still pride insists that this moment belongs to them, that they have gone where others have not, that they have seen what others will never see. And it is both curse and fuel, both danger and salvation, because pride can blind, but pride can also steady. Pride can make hands shake, but pride can also keep them moving. Pride can drive recklessness, but pride can also preserve courage. And in this delicate balance, as oxygen thins and silence thickens, the crew feels both the burden and the gift of pride. For it keeps them awake when sleep would mean suffocation. It keeps them steady when panic would mean disaster. It keeps them human when the ocean would strip them to instinct alone. And yet, even as it fuels them, they know it also binds them to the surface world of recognition and rivalry. binds them to the restless desire for more, binds them to the belief that this descent is not enough unless it is remembered, recorded, celebrated, and in that binding they sense the danger. For the ocean does not care for names. The ocean does not care for records. The ocean does not care for pride. The ocean only holds, only presses, only waits, and in the end it will outlast them, as it has outlasted all before. And so they cling to their pride, like they cling to the oxygen, knowing it will not last, knowing it will not save them forever, but unable, unwilling to let it go, because pride, like breath, is part of what makes them human, fragile yet unyielding, small yet defiant. And even here, where survival hangs by threads, it burns quietly in their chests, a flicker of fire against an endless sea, endless sea. The crew sees, or thinks they see, a presence beyond comprehension. The crew sees, or thinks they see, a presence beyond comprehension, not with their eyes alone, but with every trembling nerve, as if perception itself has been rewired, as if the vastness that surrounds them has chosen for a moment to take on a shape, though shape is the wrong word, for it is not solid, not bounded, not definable. It is suggestion more than substance, pressure more than form, a vibration in the bones, a stirring in the blood, a shadow that does not move, yet alters everything. And they wonder if it is alive, if alive is even the correct word, if they are witnessing a consciousness vast enough to wear the ocean like a veil, a mind large enough to stretch across dimensions, a being patient enough to wait at the unfinished edges of reality. And fear presses in, thick and suffocating, for what they see cannot be borne, cannot be reconciled, cannot be held by human thought. Yet at the same time a strange awe rises, lifting them, pulling them, holding them, as though the presence is not here to harm but to witness them in return, to acknowledge them, to let them know that they have been seen. And this exchange, if exchange it can be called, unravels them, because to be noticed by something so far beyond scale, so far beyond language, so far beyond comprehension, is to feel the fragility of the self, the hollowness of pride, the thinness of ambition, and yet also to feel an intimacy so profound it borders on unbearable, as though they have been folded into the breath of the cosmos, as though their existence, brief and trembling, has been accepted, absorbed, remembered, and still the presence looms, or hovers, or unfolds, not in space, but in perception, and every attempt to describe it collapses, every attempt to categorize it shatters, because it is not one thing, but all things, not image, but essence, not vision, but weight. And in its weight they feel their vessel tilt, their lights flicker, their lungs tighten, and still they stare, unable to look away, compelled not by curiosity, but by reverence, compelled not by choice, but by inevitability. For what else could they do before such a presence but surrender their gaze, surrender their thoughts, surrender their fear? And in that surrender they discover something unexpected, peace, not comfort, but peace, not safety, but stillness, not answers, but release. For in the presence they glimpse the truth that comprehension is not required, that understanding is not the path, that survival itself is not the measure, but that to exist at all in the face of such immensity is enough. And in that moment they stop asking if it is real. They stop asking if they are hallucinating. They stop asking if they will live or die, and they simply remain, suspended in the impossible, seen by what cannot be seen, held by what cannot be touched, dissolved into a presence beyond comprehension. Some call it life, some call it memory, others a trap. Some call it life, some call it memory, others a trap, but no word holds, no definition stays, because whatever it is, it slips through, meaning like water, through clenched fingers, refusing capture, refusing ownership, and yet clinging to them, clinging to their thoughts, clinging to their very sense of self, until they no longer know where the presence ends and they begin. For life it may be vast and unmeasurable, but if it is life, then it is life without hunger, life without death, life without beginning or end, a kind of being that is not lived, so much as endured, pulsing softly in the folds of reality. And if it is memory, then it is not theirs, not human memory at all, but the memory of oceans before earth, the memory of depths before light, the memory of silence before sound. And to touch even a fragment of that memory is to drown in timelines too wide for human breath, to see the bones of worlds, to feel the tides of galaxies, to carry for one unbearable instant the weight of eons. And if it is a trap, then it is not a trap of chains, but a trap of fascination, a net woven from the impossibility of turning away, for the presence does not force them, it lures them, it tempts them, it offers a stillness more seductive than freedom, a stillness that whispers of answers, of release, of dissolving into something greater than the self. And so they cannot agree on what they have found, cannot agree on what they are seeing, cannot agree on what they should do. Because in the shifting flicker of the presence, each one of them feels something different. One feels called, another feels condemned, another feels at home, another feels utterly lost. And in this fracture of perception lies the danger, for to act without agreement is to splinter, and to splinter here, at the edge of the unfinished, is to vanish, not in body perhaps, but in identity, in soul, in whatever fragile spark still separates them from the presence that waits, patient and endless, at the heart of the abyss, a presence that does not care what they call it, for it is not nameable, not ownable, not definable, only encountered, only endured, only survived. Survival is even possible at all. The secret of the ocean is not one they can easily carry back to the surface. The secret of the ocean is not one they can easily carry back to the surface, for it does not fit inside words, nor diagrams, nor data logs. It does not compress into coordinates or soundings or measurements. It does not permit itself to be reduced to the language of instruments, and the crew knows this as they sit in silence, trembling in the dim light, each breath a reminder that oxygen is finite, each flicker of the controls a reminder that their vessel was built for depths of water, not abysses of meaning. And yet the secret presses into them heavier than the ocean itself, a secret not meant to be lifted, not meant to be exposed to air, not meant to be dragged up into the realm of sunlight and shallow thought, because the surface belongs to stories of triumph and conquest, while what they have found belongs to surrender, to dissolution, to the recognition that the ocean was never a place but a veil, a boundary, a threshold into something vaster, stranger, unfinished. And carrying that truth upward would not be survival but contamination, would not be discovery but distortion, because no one on land would believe them, no one could, and those who might believe would twist it, weaponize it, dissect. It demands its proof until the proof itself dissolved. And the crew feels this weight in their bones, feels it in the silence that grows between them, feels it in the fear that rises when they imagine surfacing with empty hands and full hearts, unable to explain why they are changed, unable to describe what they saw, unable to convince themselves that it even happened. For already the memory begins to blur, already the edges fray, already the secret pulls at them like a tide, reminding them that some truths are too large to be remembered by the human mind, that some encounters are too vast to survive translation, that perhaps the only honest way to carry it is not upward but inward, to let it live inside them as silence, as fracture, as dream. And though this terrifies them, it also binds them, for they realize that no matter what happens next, they will never be the same, never again belong fully to the surface, never again belong fully to each other, because the secret of the ocean is not one they can easily carry back to the surface. And perhaps it was never meant to be carried at all. To tell the world might be to undo it. To tell the world might be to undo it. For knowledge is not always liberation. Sometimes it is collapse. Sometimes it is a tearing away of the fragile veil that keeps order intact. And as the crew feels the weight of this possibility, they realize that words themselves are dangerous tools, for even to attempt to explain what they have seen would require bending language until it breaks. And in that breaking, the world above might shatter too, because humanity has always lived by boundaries, by horizons, by the assumption that things end, that seas have floors, that maps can be completed, that the unknown is temporary, but what they have touched is not temporary. It is not a blank space waiting to be filled. It is a permanence of incompletion, a forever that refuses conclusion. And if such a truth were carried to the surface, it would gnaw at civilization from within, unraveling certainty, eating away at every shore, every chart, every definition of safe. So they hesitate. They hold the secret close, but do not dare to imagine passing it on. And they understand now why myths warn against forbidden knowledge, why old stories of gods and monsters always punished the messenger. For it is not the secret itself that destroys, but the act of speaking it, the act of letting it echo in the human tongue, the act of dragging the abyss into daylight where it does not belong. And so silence becomes their only shield. Silence becomes their vow. Silence becomes their last fragile defense against the unraveling of the surface world. Yet even as they make this vow, each of them knows deep inside that silence cannot hold forever, because memory leaks, dreams betray, and the human mind was never designed to cradle infinity. So perhaps it is already too late. Perhaps simply knowing has begun the undoing. Perhaps the world above is already cracking without knowing why. For to tell the world might be to undo it, but to withhold the world might be to undo themselves. And between these two undoings lies only the abyss, waiting, watching. Endless. To remain silent might be to betray truth itself. To remain silent might be to betray truth itself. For what is knowledge if it is buried? What is discovery if it is smothered? What is the purpose of reaching into the deepest night, if not to return with some fragment of it held high, trembling, offered to those who could never descend this far? And yet they know that truth is not innocent. Truth is not harmless. Truth is a blade as much as it is a beacon, and to wield it carelessly is to cut through the very fabric of what keeps the world whole. so they sit within the pressurized dark. Each crew member lost in the gravity of this choice, torn between silence that preserves the world and speech that honors it, silence that saves civilization and speech that honors the sea, silence that keeps humanity safe in ignorance, and speech that risks unmaking everything built upon the illusion of boundaries. And the longer they sit, the heavier the paradox becomes, until it is not merely an ethical dilemma, but a physical one, a weight in their chests, a tightening in their lungs, a dizziness in their minds, as though the abyss itself presses the choice upon them, demanding resolution, demanding allegiance, demanding to know whether they will side with secrecy or revelation. And some part of them wonders if this is the trap, if this was always the trap, not a monster, not a chasm, but the unbearable responsibility of choice, because to remain silent might be to betray truth itself, and yet to speak truth might be to betray life itself. And in this collision of betrayals lies their destiny. A destiny written not in sonar charts or mission reports, but in the private corners of their hearts, where fear and wonder burn together, refusing separation, refusing peace, refusing to let them leave unchanged. For perhaps the ocean does not care which path they take, only that they are broken open by the choice, only that they understand at last that depth is not measured in miles but in burdens carried, and this burden, whether spoken or silenced, will follow them into every breath, every dream, every shore they ever touch again in the abyss. Choices become final in the abyss. Choices become final, not because the crew has the time to debate them, not because consequences are immediate and obvious, but because the ocean allows no revision, no second attempt, no rewriting of what has been chosen. For here the pressure is absolute, and so too is fate. And as they stare into the darkness that stares back, they feel the truth of it coil around them, each decision like a crack in the hole that cannot be resealed, each hesitation like a thinning of oxygen that cannot be replenished. And the realization settles with terrifying clarity that there will be no middle path, no compromise, no half-truth they can smuggle back to the surface without paying the full price. For in this realm of silence and black water, every choice is recorded in the marrow of existence itself. And the abyss does not forget, and the abyss does not forgive. So if they choose silence, the truth will die with them, sealed forever beneath crushing miles of water. And if they choose revelation, then perhaps the surface will fracture under the weight of what they bring, a civilization undone by knowledge it cannot hold. And between these two unyielding fates lies only their trembling humanity, fragile and incomplete, caught in a chamber of steel that groans like a coffin, their faces pale in the flicker of dying instruments, their thoughts spilling into one another like the mingling of fear and awe. And they understand that no one above will ever truly know what they endured in these depths. No one will feel the way time frays here, the way silence pulses like blood, the way reality itself feels unfinished. And so whatever choice they make will be final, not only for them, but for everyone. Final for the story of humanity, final for the story of the sea, final for the fragile line between wonder and terror. For in the abyss, choices become final, and finality is a kind of death, and yet perhaps, in its own way, also a kind of truth. Lives are lost, allegiances tested, futures rewritten, Lives are lost, allegiances tested, futures rewritten. For the abyss takes its toll not only in silence and fear, but in the bodies of those who dared descend. And when the shuddering steel groans louder than thought, when a single mistake costs more than breath, the crew feels the price carved into their very marrow, some falling into panic, some clutching to duty, some whispering prayers no one will ever hear. And in these moments of fracture, bonds forged over years strain and split. Trust dissolves into suspicion, and yet loyalty to burns brighter in those who refuse to abandon their comrades. For the abyss is merciless, but it is also revealing, stripping away the masks of rivalry and ambition until only the raw truth of character remains. And that truth is harsher than pressure, harsher than cold, for one soul sacrifices themselves to hold the failing whole together. Another betrays the mission to save a single life. Another clings to protocol even as death presses closer, and in each act the course of humanity bends. Allegiances are tested against a darkness that knows no mercy, and futures those fragile, imagined dreams of return, of triumph, of recognition are rewritten into something heavier, stranger, unfinished. For the ocean below does not offer victory or defeat. It offers only transformation, and in that transformation the crew understands that they will not ascend unchanged. They will not surface as explorers, triumphant, or rivals victorious, but as fragments of themselves, broken and remade by the deep, carrying choices that cannot be reversed, and scars that cannot be hidden. And though the world above will demand explanations, reports, proofs of discovery, medals, and blame, none of it will matter. For the true story lies here, where lives are lost, allegiances tested, futures rewritten, where the abyss itself has already claimed its truth, and it is not one humanity will ever be ready to bear. When the ocean speaks, humanity must decide whether to listen. When the ocean speaks, humanity must decide whether to listen. In the crushing weight of miles of water that remind every bone and every breath that humankind is fragile, temporary, a guest trespassing in a cathedral older than memory. And the crew knows this as the abyss presses its truth upon them, a truth that is not gentle but overwhelming, a flood of visions that strike like storms, a reminder that the sea has outlived empires, rewritten continents, and buried secrets so vast that even imagination bends under their scale, and to listen is to surrender, to let the rhythm of tides and the endless churn of darkness replace the familiar pulse of human certainty, to admit that maps are lies, that depth is infinite, that the surface world, with all its wars and borders and triumphs, is nothing more than foam upon a fathomless expanse. Yet to turn away, to refuse the voice, is also dangerous. For the ocean's silence is never empty, it is patient, it waits, of what they choose not to hear. And so the crew sits in that suspended moment where the ocean has spoken and the choice hangs, unbearable, before them, and each feels the pull of two worlds, one above and one below, one loud with ambition and one quiet with eternity. And they wonder whether humanity as a whole is ready, whether civilizations that cannot survive their own pride could ever bear the truth of something so vast, whether ears tuned to the noise of cities could hear the steady beat of an ocean that existed before them and will exist long after. And in this wondering lies the fracture of the human spirit, For some are ready to listen, to let the ocean undo them, to dissolve into its infinite song, while others resist, clutching to the last threads of human story, determined to keep the surface intact, no matter the cost. And perhaps that is the true decision, whether to accept the voice of the deep and be remade by it, or to silence it and preserve the fragile illusion of control above. But either way, the ocean has spoken, and what has been heard cannot be unheard. What has been shown cannot be unseen, and whether humanity listens or not, it will never again be the same. The climax is not victory or defeat, but revelation. The climax is not victory or defeat, but revelation. For in the end, the ocean is not an enemy to be conquered, nor a riddle to be solved, but a mirror held up against the fragile persistence of human ambition. And as the crew sinks into that final chamber of silence, they realize the abyss was never about distance, measured in meters or miles, but about depth, measured in truth, and that truth is not comfortable, not triumphant, but overwhelming, stripping away every certainty they carried from the surface, unraveling the notion of beginnings and endings, of up and down, of life and death, until all that remains is the realization that they have not discovered the ocean but have been discovered by it, observed, tested, unmade and remade. And the revelation arrives not as a flash of light or a singular vision, but as a tidal wave of knowing, a flood of memory older than bone, older than blood, older than the continents themselves. And they see that the ocean does not merely fill the spaces of earth, but extends beyond a wound or a bridge into something uncharted, something unfinished, where reality itself folds and bends like currents in the deep. And in this recognition, they understand why no map has ever been complete, why no measurement has ever satisfied, why no rivalries or ambitions could survive the weight of such truth. For the abyss has no need of winners or losers, it only reveals. And revelation is its own kind of ending, an ending that strips them of triumph, strips them of despair, strips them of everything except the raw, undeniable presence of what is. The ocean fully is to dissolve within it, to lose the boundary of self and merge with something eternal. And so the climax is not survival or loss, not conquest or retreat, but this vast, unrelenting unveiling, a truth too large to fit into words or carry back to the surface. And in that truth lies both their undoing and their completion. For though they will never return as they were, though their story will never be one of banners or glory, the ocean has spoken and they have heard, and that is the revelation. The only ending the abyss has ever offered, and the only one humanity can never forget. And revelation, once seen, cannot be unseen, and revelation, once seen, cannot be unseen. For it embeds itself into the mind, like salt into stone, etching grooves that no tide of time can ever smooth away. And the crew feels this as their hearts pound against their ribs, as their lungs struggle against the thinning air, as their eyes widen in the dark, not with fear alone, but with recognition, for they know they will never again see the ocean as surface, never again hear waves without also hearing the endless silence beneath, never again look upon the horizon without imagining what waits below it, and the burden is as heavy as the water pressing in from every side. For revelation is not a gift freely given, but a weight that demands to be carried, a truth that reshapes not only the one who receives it, but everything they touch thereafter. And the crew senses that even if they were to rise, even if they were to claw their way back into daylight, the surface world would reject what they brought. For revelation does not fit into language, does not fit into charts, does not fit into governments or rivalries or scientific journals. It spills out of all boundaries, flooding thought itself. And in this knowledge lies despair. For they see how small humanity truly is against the vast machinery of the ocean. But also awe, for they realize that smallness does not mean insignificance. It means intimacy, means standing in the cathedral of the abyss and being given the terrible privilege of knowing. And once that knowing takes root, there is no going back, no silence that can erase it, no denial that can bury it. Into them, a scripture carved in pressure and darkness, and they, willingly or not, are its witnesses forever.